you are aware about good RNG and bad RNG, right?
Yes, generally there is times where it's like, okay, there's good fun RNG, and then there is, why is this game trying to cheat
Well,
RNG?
what I mainly meant by good RNG is just intentional. Where let's just say if you walk into the boss fight and the boss is always doing the same attack in the same pattern in the same order, then it's not RNG. But if
Yeah.
you walk into the boss and he's switching up attacks, that is RNG. You're never going to walk into the same boss.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes you can find consistency. Sometimes a boss will use the same opening. However, after that, it's just freestyle. It's working on a random code, or where it's like, okay, do this attack. Okay, well you're that far, then he might do this attack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a lot of Souls games have baiting where standing about mid distance from a boss will get them to do their laser attack. So
Yeah.
bait the laser, dodge to the side, get a free hit kind of thing.
So that's the good RNG I'm talking about. Stuff that you need to
Hmm.
have an interesting game instead of just having it extremely predictable.
Yeah, no, that okay, yes, that makes better sense. I was like, I probably heard them worded differently, but yes, there is good RNG where, which I guess you could call good RNG, like acceptable variance is what I would call it. Where yeah, we would expect that a boss doesn't just do two sword swings and then return to center, two sword swings, return to center, because that would be the most boring boss in the universe.
Yes.
And so sometimes he does his front flip attack, sometimes he does some other thing, and I mean there's and of course there's like mostly going off of Souls bosses because they're generally very well designed. I said generally. I'm looking at you, Sir Alonne. um, I'm very weird. I did not like Sir Alonne. I After I beat Dark Souls 2, I said he is probably in my bottom three of bosses in that game. I
Really?
did
Wow.
not like him. Did not like him. Because he insists upon himself. If you
He
know
assists
Family,
upon himself.
I just know, even like Family Guy, I mostly know from memes and clips. But yeah, that was more or less how I felt. My thoughts on Sir Alonne was everybody was like, "Oh, you can't! I bet you can't wait to fight Sir Alonne in the DLC." It was like, "Oh, he's gonna be so cool!" And then I get in there and he's got these really weird delays, and it's like, yeah, once you got used to them, then he just looked awkward, and I don't know. He didn't feel like fighting a smooth swordsman. It felt like a dude who was just kind of guessing what he wanted to do every couple quarter second and a half, and it's like, I guess sure. And like the run that I did kill him on, I think I only got hit once, but it took me like 15, 20, 30 plus runs to get to him. And if you know Sir Alon's boss run, right?
Mm.
In Dark Souls 2. Sir Alon, I like I was talking about, I wasn't a fan of him. I When I did finally beat him, I beat him in like two. I think I beat him, but I only got hit like twice on the attempt that I did beat him. Um, but every other attempt, I think I made like 30 plus attempts
Hmm.
to kill him. If do you remember Sir Alon's boss run
his what do you mean by his boss run? You mean his run back?
from his run back from
Yeah, I remember it being
bonfire to thing?
crazy.
it's it's dumb. It is bad game design at its finest. Where it's just like, yeah, here's a bunch of Alon knights who have variable running speed. Speaking of RNG, sometimes they'll kind of trot up to you. Sometimes they'll do what I call the corn cob walk. You see the Alon knights where they'll do the do, 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 little walk thing where they like shuffle their legs like pressed together. That walk. Sometimes they'll be able to do a stab out of that. Sometimes they'll be able to swing their sword out of that. Sometimes they'll have to stand and then wind up. It it's such a weird boss run. But yeah, even then when I got to him, he just didn't feel consistent. He didn't feel
Hmm.
smooth. I enjoyed, like, of that DLC, specifically the Old Iron King DLC. I enjoyed fighting the Blue Smelter Demon, and I found the Blue Smelter Demon's boss run to be easier than Sir Alon's.
Wow.
I know a lot of people have very different interpretations of what is easy and what is hard for them in Souls games, but everybody was saying, "Oh, the Blue Smelter Demon sucks. It's just the boss reskin." And the run back is like the worst in the entire series. and it's awful, but Sir Alonne's amazing. You're gonna love it. And it was the exact opposite for me. Sir Alonne, I was like, I genuinely don't know if I want to beat this boss because I was doing an all bosses run of DS2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was like, no, I have to do it. Yes, I did also have to kill Luden Zolin in Frigid Outskirts, and oh boy, did that ever change my perspective. I felt like a spoiled child when I was complaining about Lon's boss fight after doing Frigid Outskirts. You remember that whole part, Eliam Lois, that whole
Oh,
DLC?
yes. Yep.
Oh yeah, I was like, I don't think you can forget about that. I'm pretty sure we all have scarring from having to do that run where it was just like, oh yeah, the reindeer are gonna pop out of nowhere and murder you unless you can just kind of how do you dodge them? You just kind of guess when they're gonna hit you.
I
I mean,
always,
there's
I always just ran to the left. I don't know. I know I haven't played it in a long time, but it feels like I've always found some kind of bypass, especially with the Sir Alone we were mentioning earlier. Because I think I've always found some kind of motion to run through it smoothly, like just not just skipping everything, but just see the thing is the extra scary aspect of Dark Souls 2 is that you're vulnerable while entering the fog door. So if the enemies catch
Mhm.
up with you, that's it.
Yeah, that was one of the things like that was annoying for the original Smelter Demon at Iron Keep, but because if you were trying to run past them, they were all on your tail. But Sir Alon, he had I think a Diagro wall that was like halfway down the stairs, so sometimes the archers might hit you, but it wasn't super common. But the melees couldn't get to you at the bottom of his staircase. At least in all of my times that I did it, there might be some times that they just change their mind and go, nah, what the heck's a Diagro wall, and they just run right past it. But
Thank you for listening to this podcast clip. If you want to watch more of the podcast, the full podcast is in the link in the description, along with my guest channel name. And if you would like to guest in a future podcast, please contact me and we shall talk so we can discuss many, many topics, more to come. Other than that, have a glorious day.